And get going on our session. Good afternoon. It is such a pleasure to see so many of you ready to log in and learn today. It's nice to see some familiar faces and names. Thank you for joining. My name is Amy Fiore. I am the new director of the Nonprofit Help Desk and wearing two hats today because I am also the facilitator of this workshop. I am here with my colleague Ina, who is going to be managing tech and the chat for us. And before we get into our topic, which happens to be one of my favorite topics, I want to take a moment to introduce you to the Nonprofit Help Desk because we have a lot of great stuff coming up within the next couple of months. For anyone who is brand new to the Help Desk, we are a program of the Jewish Community Council of Greater Coney Island. We have free live workshops, many of them focusing on discretionary, New York City discretionary funding, and we are here to serve New York City organizations. We are also here to serve nonprofits with our workshops. You can really log in from anywhere, and so we're so glad to have you. On our website at nphd.org, you will always see the recordings of workshops in the past. You got to scroll through a little bit to find them, do a control find to look for the topic that you're interested in, but lots of great learning there. We also are building our LinkedIn community, so please follow us. We'd love to have some conversations with you there. So check that out. We also offer free expert advice. Actually, let me first show you some workshops. This is just a smattering of what we have coming up. If you are interested in applying for discretionary funding, the deadlines are coming up, and we are covering every topic you can imagine. We are representing many different council offices who are popping on to say hello. So if you're not already on our email list, go to Ina. They can go to nphd.org to join our email list, right? I should know
Yeah.
the answer to that question.
Thank you.
Amazing. Join our list so that you know, and also by signing up today, we'll be sure to send you more information. This is also just a smattering of the topics that we have. You can find out more at our website. And we really are a help desk. The same way that you would go to the Geek Squad for your computer problems, you can come to us. If you are a New York City organization, you can come to us with your nonprofit questions. Just to clarify, we are looking for specific questions. If you are looking for, I don't know where to begin, our workshops are a great place to start. But if you're sort of looking at, I have written a press release and I don't know if it actually includes everything I need it to include, that's a great topic for us. Or I'm not a nonprofit yet and I need some legal advice on how to get started on that. It's a great topic for us. Go to nphd.org, fill out a very brief form to tell us about your organization, and then we can pair you with an expert in that particular area. Without any further ado, I'm going to dive straight into my topic for today, a better way to get your board to fundraise. What we're really looking at today is redefining your board's role in the fundraising process, lessening the intimidation factor, and providing tips and tools to engage in fundraising without ever asking for a dime. Nobody believes me, but it's true. I'm challenging you to believe me, and you can let me know in the chat when our hour is up. A little bit more about me is on the screen, but I don't want to just talk about myself. I want this to be interactive. I can see the chat here, so I want to know a little bit more about you. Tell me your name, your organization, your role in the organization, and the size of your board. And while you're doing that, I'm going to take a quick look. Someone is asking, workshops helpful to folks outside of New York City? This one, basically everything that you see on our website with a blue graphic, they are applicable to organizations countrywide. We usually focus on US, so NGOs, because funding sources are very different, not quite as applicable, but basically any nonprofit in the US, any of our general workshops are really applicable. So thank you for that question. And thank you to the folks that are telling me about their organizations. About me, my pronouns are she, her. I am managing director of Sobel Bixel Consulting for Nonprofits, where I engage in direct fundraising for clients, and actually probably spend more of my time overseeing strategic, organizational, and development planning. I was recently appointed as the director of the nonprofit help desk, and it is a pleasure to be able to support smaller nonprofits that don't have the ability to bring on consulting help at this time. So thrilled to do that. And because I have a massive head, I like to wear a lot of hats. I am also the director of Story Pirates Changemakers, which is the nonprofit arm of Story Pirates, which is a youth and literacy organization that has a wildly popular podcast for kids and families that recently passed the 100 million download mark. So if you have third and fourth graders in your life and you're not familiar with them, check them out. And if you are, I say hello from that because they're an incredible organization. Bit about my background. I came up through the nonprofit ranks in the arts, education, and youth development spaces. I started in marketing and segued into development because I am way too verbose for tweeting. And I've learned how to be a nonprofit executive by doing and making mistakes and doing again. Some of that has to do with when I was up and coming in arts management, there really weren't programs to learn what I was doing. And also because nonprofit has a little bit of that, where we try things, we throw stuff at the wall, and we see what sticks. I believe through doing that, I've had a little bit of a leg up in helping other organizations because I've made a lot of mistakes that I'm hoping I can offer to help you prevent you from making the same ones. I really like working with organizations and strategically poking the status quo to find more sensible and simpler solutions to really common problems. And I really like inspiring staffs and boards to do the same thing so that they can focus on serving and funding their missions. And this topic today is just a perfect example of status quo, the things that we do, the things that we assume, the things that we are frustrated about that repeat over and over and over again. So I'm going to start by switching my slide, but I'm also going to open a poll for you. I want to know, why is it that your board does not fundraise successfully? They don't like asking people for money. They don't know how. They don't know it's part of their role. More than one of these things, something different. I want to know from you. Let's see how these are coming in. More than one of these things. They don't like asking for money. They don't know how. They don't know that it's their job. If anyone wants to throw in the chat what their other is, in case I didn't cover any of those. Curious, maybe they don't know, maybe they were never asked to, maybe it was never part of their charter. I'm going to close this poll in just a moment. They were never asked to. It happens quite often. All right, I'm going to share the results on this. Many reasons, but it's usually more than one. They don't like asking people for money. They don't know how, and they do not know that it's part of their role. Thank you, Paul. Hi, Paul. Having access to people who have money to move the needle. That's an excellent one. And also, I'm going to challenge that one. But Paul, you know me well enough to know that I was going to challenge that one anyway. Okay. How do I make those poll results go away? Let's see. Are they still there? I'll go back. All right. Are the poll results still in the middle of my face? Are we good? We're good? Amazing. Thank you, Ina. Okay. So often I hear from clients, or I'm on these nonprofit Facebook groups, and I see the question where everyone is lamenting that the board doesn't fundraise. I recently got a question from an executive director about this. The question that came into my email, the sentence was, how do I make them excited and accountable for raising money? And I want to break that down because I get a version of that question all the time, but the way that one was phrased was the perfect example. First of all, the word make. How do I make my board be excited and accountable? If you are trying to make someone do anything, you're already doing it wrong. Right? And we know this. We know this if we're parents. We know this as we engage in our relationships in our life. If you're trying to make someone do something, already there is a disconnect between you and that person. And the second is, I want to make them be excited and accountable for raising money. Excited and accountable in the same sentence as fundraising. Again, this is doing it all wrong. If you are trying to make someone both excited and accountable at the same time, then the conversation is not going the way that you need it to go. So I'm going to start. And so now you're going to say to me, okay, now what? Because I do need to make them be both excited and accountable in order to do my job. And so I'm going to start with a really unpopular opinion. Now, some of you are looking at this screen and you're like, well, then why am I here? This is a waste of my time. I should just take back my 48 minutes. If the board is not, if Amy Fiore says that the board is not responsible for fundraising, why are we doing this, right? Well, look at my fine print. I propose that as a board, they are not responsible for fundraising, but they should be a key part of fundraising initiatives. Fundraising is difficult. It is awkward. Now, some of you, if you're a nonprofit professional, if you're good at this, might go, no, it isn't. I keep saying to everyone, it's not difficult. It's not awkward. But you're already good at this. And if we don't acknowledge that most people feel that fundraising is difficult and awkward, then we're not meeting them where they're at. And we are not reminding them that effective fundraising does not look like begging. But most people assume that it does. Most people feel that when they're being asked to fundraise, they're supposed to be, hat out on their knees saying, please, sir, can I have some more? And I think it's important that if we don't acknowledge that there is a disconnect between what our board thinks fundraising is and what we want them to do as fundraisers, then you're never going to get past this step. So I want to start, at least for the rest of the session, but maybe even in your board conversations, swapping the narrative. I want you to consider replacing the word fundraiser with ambassador. Now, it seems really, really simple, but that is, in fact, what you are asking them to do. An ambassador is someone who represents, speaks for, or advertises a particular organization, group of people, etc., or brand. It's really simple, right? An ambassador is someone who talks about your good work out in the world. And as fundraisers, we know that is easily 85% of the gig, right? We do it in different ways. We write a proposal, but that's still being an ambassador. We talk to folks, that's still being an ambassador. We write an appeal letter, but all of that is still really just being an ambassador to an organization. So we have to ask ourselves, and we need to share with our board, and we need to keep in mind what makes for a good ambassador. Knowledge, comfort, and enthusiasm, they're all very simple things, but they're it. If you are not someone with knowledge about an organization, if you do not have comfort talking about an organization, if you don't feel enthusiastic about doing those things, you are not likely to be a very good ambassador. And our board members, who we can assume are intelligent people, if they don't feel knowledge, comfort, and enthusiasm, they're not going to be likely to do it at all. They're going to decide, I'm not putting myself out there because I don't feel like I know what I'm supposed to say. I don't feel comfortable doing it. And so therefore, I am not enthusiastic about it. And so when we talk about how do I make them be excited, it is less about making them, but instead about building their enthusiasm, which comes from building their knowledge, which then will in turn build their comfort in being an ambassador for your organization. All right, we all love this term, right? Your elevator speech. I am going to ask you find a back of an envelope, your notes app on your phone. I want you to think about that quick elevator speech for your organization. For anyone unfamiliar with the term, it is explaining a concept in a way that any listener can understand it in a short period of time, like the duration of an elevator ride. And so I don't want you to now go into your, SharePoint or your Google Drive and just copy and paste your mission, right? Because you're afraid that I'm going to call on you and you're going to read it. I actually want you, pen to paper, fingers to keypad. I want you to write out that elevator speech. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to do it. I want you to do it from memory. How do you talk about your organization? And pro tip here, how do you talk about your organization in a way that the person you are speaking to will care? I'm going to stop talking for about 30 seconds, give you a chance to jot that down. All right. In the interest of time, I'm going to move on from that, and I'm going to move on to a poll here. I'm assuming because you logged in today, because you have noon on a Tuesday to be thinking about your nonprofit organization, that this was not necessarily difficult for any of you. But I'm curious, as you look at what you jotted down, what you didn't have a chance to finish, would your board members give the same elevator speech as you? That yes is going way down. 13% yes. Letting you all finish responding on this. All right, 77% participate. I'll go ahead and end our poll and share our results. 43% of you said maybe. 43% of you are not sure what, not positive what your board would do. 23% of you are positive that your board could. 23% of you are positive that your board would not. And then another 11% are, I have no idea. I have no idea if my board can do it or not. This is important to note. And I want to do some framework on this, because the truth is, I'm assuming, and I took a quick look through the chat as to who you are and how you joined. Most of you are executive directors, development directors. You know your organization. It is an extension of you to a certain extent. And so therefore, you are giving this elevator speech in one version or another pretty regularly, I'm going to assume. You are also probably pretty comfortable changing this up, depending on who you're talking to, changing the way that you give this speech. Your board does not do it anywhere near as often as you do. Not only that, they do not have the same access to the information to be able to change the speech as often as you do. And so you hear everyone talk about, and I am sure at least some of you have been in a board meeting where either your board has said to you, we need you to write us an elevator speech, or you've done it. I have written it for you. I have written it for you, and I have sometimes maybe even given you a script. I've given you the script to say, well, if this person comes from this background or has this affinity or this job, then you can say it this way, right? But what I'm going to offer is perhaps it's time to toss them out. Because the truth is, How many of you get onto an elevator and actually talk to someone next to you? How many of you get on an elevator and talk to someone next to you about your nonprofit organization? The reasons for the discrepancy in comfort are inherent. The staff member is immersed, so they live and breathe in the knowledge of the organization. So, of course, they're going to be more adept at verbalizing it. So, the staff has a responsibility to the board to make sure that they have the same level of comfort, to be able to actually use a narrative and use it in a way that people actually engage with one another. So I'm going to get back to that in a moment. First way to be an ambassador is knowing the various things that you should say. And how do we do that? This goes back to how we engage with our board. Communicating regularly. Now I'm waiting for it. I know that some of you are you're already, your fingers are on the keyboard. I send a weekly email to my board and they never read it. They never ever pay attention. I talk and talk and talk during my board meetings. I send them a report ahead of time and they do not ever read the report. So then I just have to basically read it to them at a meeting. I'll offer I'll offer an anecdote. When my daughter was in kindergarten, they're brand new, first time mom, very new to all of this stuff. There was an e-blast and it was a poorly written, so many typos, really annoying e-blast that would come out every Sunday night, which is like the last time moment where you want to like read a newsletter. And one week, probably still like late September, really early in the school year, everyone comes out of school with an ice pop. And mine comes out, no ice pop, tears, hysterically crying. And why would no one give my precious child an ice pop? Well, the ice pop was a fundraiser, and the fundraiser was in that newsletter. And I did not read that newsletter. So therefore, my precious child, who I believe has recovered from this, I know you'll have to ask her, she's 18 years old now. I learned a lesson that if I don't read that newsletter, I don't know what's going on. And no one is going to hold it up for me. I offer this anecdote to you to keep in mind for your boards. If you continue to train your boards to know that if they don't read your emails, if they don't read your board reports, that you are just going to then read it to them during the board meeting, why would they read them? You have taught them that, right? It's possible that there was a couple people that in your board meeting the first few times had already read your report and then sat for a 90-minute board meeting and listened to you read the report and went to themselves, I'm never going to read that again. Why would I do that? It's already, they're going to just tell it to me. If instead you think about how you can make your meetings worthwhile, if instead you look at the report that you send them and say, we're going to have my agenda, and you can talk to your board president if, God bless you, you have a board president who actually loves to make their agenda, but that's pretty rare. If instead you determine we're going to have a discussion that is based on this report and you dive in and you anticipate that they have already read it, and the board members that do not read your reports are now sort of looking around and trying to catch up, they have now learned that your board meetings are not just for learning information, they're for engaging in information that they have already learned. So making the meetings worthwhile, including questions, concerns, discussion topics, not only gets your board to engage in a different way, they also then have agency in what they're engaging in. It's not enough for your board members to listen during a meeting. You want them to talk. Now, sometimes that's a slippery slope, right? Some of us are like, no, I really don't. I actually much prefer when my board is really, really quiet and just rubber stamps everything I say. Sure, but then they're not going to be enthusiastic. And that is part of that comfort in being an ambassador. We advocate the things that we have internalized. We are ambassadors to things that we feel. When we care, that's when we put in the effort. And so if you allow your board members the ability to feel like they are part of it, and that happens through discussion, that happens through decision making, then your meetings are more worthwhile. And now they are going to have at least the enthusiasm or the start of it to start caring to act like an ambassador. The next is access, and we often call this mission moments. And this is tricky because not every organization can provide the same kind of access. An arts organization can say, "Come on into a rehearsal, just sit quietly in the back," and you feel like you have it in. If you are a pet adoption agency, come on in, pet some puppies, and now you get all the feels, and you're able to walk around the earth and start talking about the organization. If you are a domestic violence organization, that is not anywhere near as easy a possibility. But if you can find ways to share impact through anecdote, not just numbers, impact in a way that is respectful and ethical in the way that you are protecting the privacy and dignity of the people that you are serving, but also giving your board a way to feel connected to the work that inspires them to do more. Take those opportunities, seek those opportunities, because it's not enough for a board member to understand that we met 83% of the goals that we set forth for ourselves this year. Those numbers do not connect to emotion. And yes, there are a lot of debates about this. There are a lot of debates of if you ask Voulet and Nonprofit AF, who I agree with on a lot of topics, he'll say that we should give because the giving is the right thing to do. And I agree, and also know that board members are human beings. And everyone joins a board for a reason. And if you don't know your board members why, if you don't know why they are there, if you don't you can do a good job of expressing why you are there, and maybe you feel like you do that a lot. If you have not given your board member an opportunity to express to you why they care, you have missed an opportunity to engage them in a way that's going to be meaningful for them. So take time in a board meeting, plan a retreat, and let the first thing take an hour and a half. And trust me, it does. It takes forever to go around a room of 20 people and say, "What made you decide to join this board? Why is this mission meaningful to you?" And when I facilitate retreats, about halfway through that, I'm always like, "Oh God, I'm wasting so much time so far off of my agenda." And I find time and again, that was the most important part, because everyone having the opportunity to connect about why we care about this mission, and learn that the guy that comes to the board meetings and always seems grumpy, he always comes late, he always leaves early, never seems to do all the things that he's supposed to do. But when we find out that it had something to do with a family member, something, an experience in their life, that changes things. That changes the way we relate to the organization. It changes the way we relate to one another. And all of that is what makes you and makes them better ambassadors for the organization. So board members are going to now say, "Okay, great. That's well and good. Thank you so much for letting me go around the room and tell you my why." But let's be honest here. Staff has far more opportunities to talk about the organization, right? And on this, I say dead wrong. Dead wrong. The first step to being an ambassador is always being an ambassador. The answer to the polite question, "What's new?" is the next initiative or challenge about your organization. If somebody asks, "How are you?" Well, I am great because I'm feeling really excited about this grant that we got or award that we won. Or I'm feeling, you know what? I'm not great today because I was just at a board meeting last night and I am feeling really nervous about diversifying our funding streams. I mean, talk about, anything going on in the news today, regardless of what political side you are on, we know that funding is shifting, right? And so there is more and more of an opportunity to talk about our organizations all the time. My own barometer personally, for my sense of ambassadorship is when my husband rolls his eyes and when my younger daughter can verbatim say the mission of Story Pirates, then I'm doing my job. That means I'm talking about it too much. And that is perfect. When my family is really, really sick of hearing about it and they have nothing to do with this organization and they can talk about it because I do it ad nauseum, that's it. That's exactly the level of ambassador that I try to be when I care about an organization. And that's really, really important. Um, it can replace chatting about the weather. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get in doing this. Um, I'm going to make you try. Now everyone's like, oh, no, wait, what's she about to do? I'm a little bit afraid. It's okay. We're going to be okay. What I'm going to do is I see how many people do I have on this meeting right now? Perfect. I'm going to put you all into momentary breakout rooms. I'm going to introduce you to another human being, and I am going to ask you to say to them, the first person asks, how are you today? And I want you to find a way to include something about your organization in the answer, and then you just switch that narrative. So I'm going to make, maybe there'll be 2 or 3 people in a group. I'm going to do 20 breakout rooms. All right. I'm sending you off. You only have to be there for a few minutes. Be friendly, be kind. You're going to say, hi, how are you? I am doing X because of something related to my organization. Off you go. Anyone who's still here in our room, please do join your breakout room. You should see something on your screen.
Someone's asking for help in a breakout room.
I'm trying to, there's so many people. Rebecca, let me move you to another room. Let's see if that works. Moving some folks around. Anyone who's all by themselves. And you're all back. Some of you, I apologize if you ended up in an empty room. This is my first time doing breakout rooms with chatbots, and I apologize. There were lots of chatbots that are not as good at talking about the weather and trying to incorporate their nonprofit in it. Give them about 5 years, and I'm sure that they'll figure it out and replace us all. But for now, you at least get the point. The idea is this: if you have kids and you are about to go into soccer season and you typically have your lawn chair and you sit down next to people that you sort of know a little bit and you have to find something to talk about for an hour while your kid poorly plays soccer, this might just be my own personal experience. um, see See how your nonprofit can be part of the conversation. Have you ever tried? Has it ever come up? And more importantly, look around. Those of you who are in an office right now, that has nothing to do with your nonprofit, right? Let's say that you are on a board of another nonprofit, or recommend this to your board members, the people that are closest to them in their lives. Do they know that they serve on a board? Do they know about the mission of the board? And that was something that I realized in my own. I'm really good at this kind of, this kind of narrative, right? I'm really good at telling nonprofits what to do. And then I realized that I wasn't doing it myself. That professionally, my professional network knows what I do, knows about the organizations I care about. But I realized that personally, my friends, my family, my work colleagues, people that I talk to all the time, I was not talking about my organization. They didn't know about it. Now, you are going to find that sometimes you're turning to your right and ignoring the soccer game and talking to this person, and you're going to realize their eyes are glazing over, right? They're just not into it. Well, good thing you can turn to the left. You have my blessing. Your board needs your blessing to say, not everybody's going to be into you. We know this, right? We know that we need to talk to probably 10 people to find one that is interested in our mission, who actually, when they say, yeah, tell me more, they actually mean it. We know that. Our board, they have limited time. They're volunteers. They want to knock it out of the park, and they want to do it once. And I think that we need to be really clear with our board members that that's not how this works. Being an ambassador is not, have 3 conversations and then we will have 3 more major donors. I mean, sure, if you're really that great. But I go back to Paul, I'm going to pick on you. I go back to what Paul said before of our board does not necessarily know enough people with money. The truth is, we don't necessarily need a handful of people with money, because just like ambassadors, donors are going to give to what they care about. And it is less about knowing going after the wealthiest person in their life. And instead, it's about finding people who have that spark. It's finding people who care about rescue animals because a rescue animal rescued them in their life, right? They never felt like their life was full until mom and dad got that pet. And that's why they care about no-kill shelters. And that's why they're here. Now, you look at them, you wouldn't know that because, they're a finance bro and they don't seem like that. But the truth is, this is something that when we go around the circle, we actually learn about them. And what they can do when they're at the dog park is actually start that conversation at the dog park of, where'd you get your puppy? And yeah, depending on which dog park you go to, they're going to say, oh, this puppy mill, right? But when you find that person that said, I only believe in rescue dogs because, a dog rescued me, there you go. Oh, that's so funny that you say that. I actually am on the board of this organization. Now, you don't need to know what that person's wealth is, because you don't need all of that person's money, whoever that person is. What you need is people who care, because it's possible that the person that they met at the dog park is not wealthy, but happens to sit in a position of corporate social responsibility at a major Fortune 500 company. They can't write you a check, but they could get you 500 volunteers tomorrow, and they'll probably pay you for the privilege of it, right? So the more we talk, the better. And the more there's no wasted conversation. There is, if you turn to the left, you turn to the right, and neither of them are that into it. Okay, you didn't do anything. You did your job for that morning. Now, what are you doing this afternoon? Are you going to a backyard barbecue with your friends? Are you going to talk about the organization there? It's really, and this is important, this permission to fail is something that we don't say enough to our boards. Most of the time, a board member is a high functioning competitive person. That's not uncommon for our boards. Grown-ups often are. And so if we redefine what failure is for them, more importantly, let's flip that around. If we redefine what the job is, if we redefine what success is talking to 10 people about the organization, not getting 10 donors. Success is talking to 10 people about the organization, even if you get 0 donors. That's okay. That's really impressive. It's better than your development director is probably doing, because your development director only has a finite number of people. Your executive leadership only has a finite number of people. Now, of course, it's helpful as a board to think about the circles that you want to reach. And that is a great discussion for your board meeting, making your board meetings meaningful, where you talk about the dog park and whatever your version of that is. What circle should you be looking at? Where should your board be? What group should your board be following on LinkedIn or Facebook, or the communities that they might want to be part of? But the devil is in the details. I have organizations that do this incredibly well, and I are still extraordinarily frustrated because they feel like, but my board's doing this. My board does talk about that. They say they talk about the organization all the time. Why don't I see any more donors? You need a system by which Jim talks to Biff. I don't know where my names are coming from. Jim talks to Biff at the dog park, right? Biff is excited. We find out Biff really cares. What does Jim do with this information? Who does Jim tell? Now, I know how this is supposed to work. I know we spent a lot of money on Razor's Edge, right? And Razor's Edge is supposed to hold this information and trigger things and then do a wealth screening, and we'll find out that Biff is actually really wealthy. And okay, that's how that's supposed to work, right? Because I definitely got a sales pitch from Razor's Edge that said this is how this is supposed to work. But in reality, how does this work? What happens is Jim comes to me, director of development, at about 9 o'clock at night as I am trying to clean up half-empty wine glasses at our boardroom table, and nobody's cleaned up after themselves. And Jim says to me, I got to tell you about this guy. And his name starts with a B. I can't remember what it is. But follow up with me. I got to go. I gotta catch my train, but follow up with me. Guy, his name starts with B and he really likes dogs. Okay, I say, with half-empty wine glasses and napkins and all of the reports that I printed for everyone because they said they needed and then left behind, right? And so what do I do? I take a Post-it note that has other things on it, and then I write the letter B on it, and I circle it twice because that'll do it, right? That'll get that right into Razor's Edge. And then, of course, what happens to that Post-it note? The Post-it note is now in the bottom of my bag. I will find it in 6 months and be like, B, I wonder what B, I don't know what B means. Crumple it up, throw it in the garbage. Now, I am sure sometime that month, I'm going to lament to my nonprofit friends, my board never does anything. You know, I went to this workshop and they said that my board should be ambassadors and they're telling me they're doing it. And my board doesn't do that. And it's, my board is broken. I can't make them be enthusiastic, right? And Jim, at the same time, is like, you know, I feel like I really tried. And I did meet that guy and I told Amy to follow up with me and she didn't, but now I've basically forgotten about it. So I guess, you know what? I'm not good at this. I'm not a good ambassador. Let me just write another check. It's not that big of a check. I'll write another check and I'll just move on because then I don't have any guilt about this. Instead, If you say to Jim, thank you so much for that. I'm going to email you tomorrow so we can put together more information on this. And then I write Jim on my post-it note. Or better yet, I say to Jim, listen, all the stuff in my hands, right? This is important to me, and I really appreciate the fact that you put yourself out there and actually we're talking about the organization. I want to make sure we do this properly, but we actually have a system in the office. So I'm going to email you tomorrow. And what I'm going to ask you to do, and I'm going to outline this as an email, it's just going to have like 3 or 4 bullet points. And it's going to say, will you make an introduction to this person if you are connected with them? Can you help me find this person? Can you look for them on LinkedIn and then connect me to them? And when you connect me to them, I want you to say, Amy and Biff, I'm really glad to connect you to one another. The reason why I'm doing it is because we were in the dog park, and Biff, you said that you care about our mission. And so I wanted you to be connected to Amy. Do with it what you will. You can completely ignore this, but I didn't want to drop the ball on this. That's it. Your board is absolved then. They have done everything that you need them to do. Now that name goes into Razor's Edge. You will actually do the research, or someone on your team will go and look up that person on LinkedIn. They'll Google that person and find out that they work at Google, right? They will do their best to get this person to follow on social media. They'll do their best to get this person on your mailing list and will follow up. And then when you have an event, the puppy petting event, right? And Biff actually RSVPs, you will then write to Jim and you will say, Jim, I just want to tell you, this is awesome. Biff is actually coming. I don't know if you're free this afternoon, but Biff is coming and I figured I'd let you know so that you can greet him again. And when Biff comes and Jim is there, the next day you write to the board and the entire board and say, hey, I just want to extend a thank you and share an example of great work from our board. Jim made this connection. This is how it came together. And now Biff has, expressed interest. He made a $50 gift before he left. And we just want to say how much we appreciate the little things make a difference here. All of that, those teeny tiny things, making sure it goes into Razor's Edge or Donor Perfect, or you name your system, right? Making sure that the system knows that Biff is connected to Jim, and that triggers in some way that when Biff RSVPs, that Jim is made aware. Taking the time to let Jim know, taking the time to let the board know, taking the time to celebrate a tiny win. That $50 was pretty, was fought for. And that does make a difference, because that is where donors come from. Donors don't come from Jim looking at, trying to get an opportunity to talk to his boss's boss's boss so that maybe they'll buy a table at your gala that year. And your boss's boss's boss will, feel the bleeding heart and will do it, and will send, a whole bunch of assistants, and will never think about your organization again. Biff, on the other hand, may be the one that actually scrapes together 10 people to buy a table at your gala. And those people are far more valuable to you because they already have the knowledge and the comfort and the enthusiasm, at least the basis of it, to start being ambassadors for your organization. Now, I mentioned a gala. I mentioned puppy petting event. These are important. You do want to make sure that you have an opportunity to follow up with these individuals. It can be as simple as a newsletter. It can be more creative, like Valentine's Day cards, because we love our donors. Perhaps it's a photocopy of Valentine's Day cards for the education organization that you are working for, so that they see an example of the work. Finding ways to then engage these donors is equally important, because you want to create the opportunities, these kismet type of opportunities, to then be able to congratulate that board member for bringing somebody new into the fold. And this is a generic list, but it, again, going back to your meaningful board meetings, this is a good conversation. What are the kinds of things that people would want to come to? Is it a bar night? I don't have people who can, spend $500 for a plate at a gala, but they'll show up at a pub. They'll definitely show up at a pub. Can you do that instead? Are we creating the opportunities that match what our contacts actually want? Could we, could we have a table at that soccer game? Because I've been sitting in that lawn chair and I've been talking to those people for a while. None of them are going to go to a gala. Every one of them would need to get a babysitter, but they'd actually be interested in this education organization, right? Could we do an event with them? I have an organization that I love, who has who has their board president. First day that I was consulting for them, said, I want you to raise more money for this organization. I want you to, I want you to make this board be enthusiastic. And he said, but I'm letting you know I don't fundraise. And I was like, okay, great, sure. Let me make magic happen. But what was fascinating was, but his favorite thing to do as a board member was to make thank you phone calls. He would, at the end of every appeal, he would ask the director of development for a list of 5 people who gave at a similar level to him. And he really liked calling them to say thank you for the gift that you made. I'm curious why you decided to make it my family donates to this organization as well. And I just want to express my appreciation. It's a community organization, so there's a good chance that, they would have some people in common, a really powerful mission that was very important to this man. And when I learned that, I asked him about it, and he said, yeah, it's just, they're always good conversations. I mean, it's sort of networking for me, but it just like reminds me why I'm here. And I said, have you ever told everyone else on the board that you're doing it? And he said, no. I said, could I? He said, yeah, I would love for more people to make these calls. And so we did. We shared with everyone else, and everyone said, some people were like, oh, I don't like the phone. I don't want to do that. But there were some folks that were like, yeah, that's actually interesting. Or some who were like, I don't think I want to do that, but what, everyone else is doing it? Okay, I'll try it. What he didn't realize, the gruff first meeting with him where he said, I don't fundraise. Yeah, you do, because that's it, right? That is fundraising. Because it brings us back to but what about donations, right? You or someone on your staff is an expert in fundraising. If you're not yet, you're getting there, right? You know how to make an ask. In fact, you don't really want somebody else to do that for you, because invariably they're going to ask for less money than you're going to ask for. Or that person will be like, can I do a stock gift? And you won't be there to say, I really wish you wouldn't, because those are really complicated to come in, right? You want to be the one that makes the ask because you know how to make an ask. You want someone to put the ball on the tee. That's all you're asking them to do. And then you can give them credit for when you make the ask. And going back to, they're just not that into you, right? You turn to the left, you turn to the right. You are giving them agency the entire time to say, yeah, you know what? This person's not really into it. Let's take them off of the list. Cool, fine. That's, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, right? Like that's cool. We don't need to have a win with all of these people. The donations come out of the cultivation, because when we ask important questions, we typically know the answer before we ask them. Ask any man who has ever gotten down on one knee. You do not do it until you're really positive you know you're going to get a yes. Fundraising works the exact same way, and that's relationship building. And everything you are doing for your organization, whether you are trying to get individual donors, whether you are trying to build your board, whether you are trying to get foundation funding or corporate funding, every one of those money decisions is made by a person, and you are cultivating that person. So to put it all together, be in the know. Make sure your board is comfortable talking about and knows what they're talking about with your organization. Look for casual opportunities, loop in the staff, make sure you have your systems in place, reach out, make sure you're creating opportunities for everyone to come together, invite them to learn more, and stay connected. And that is a better way. for your board to fundraise. Jess Kaufman, you're the face that is on the top of my screen. You are so enthusiastic and I appreciate you so much. I feel like I'm in a conversation. I appreciate you. Ina, I said I was going to look at the chat as it went along and I didn't. Do we have any questions or does anyone have any questions that they want to throw into the chat? Forgive us if we missed one along the way. It was an active chat.
I don't think there's that many. I see a lot of introductions and pitches. We can unmute people if they want to ask their questions.
Jess, I see your question. Do we have any resources for smaller new organizations or on software or resources like Razor's Edge? Here's my opinion. You should use the system that you are willing to learn and know the best. None of them are perfect, but all of them work. And what I would say is if you, whichever one, go get a whole bunch of sales pitches because lots of them love to give you a sales pitch. Take the one that looks like the simplest to use and start doing it when you're really willing to throw yourself into learning your database system, because they only work if you work them. And I mean, I happen to like Salesforce, but Salesforce is free for nonprofits and then $40,000 to build. So, you know, there are great small ones that work incredibly well, but they only work as well as you work them, which is a really big non-answer. And I'm sorry for that. But it is also the one that I believe in and has found to be true. How do you have these conversations without being in person? It's a great question. First of all, I've tried, I struggled with this and do so much of my work via Zoom. Don't immediately jump into your agenda in a meeting. Create the water cooler part, log on early in a Zoom meeting and see when people are there. Don't wait until the moment the meeting starts to let them into the Zoom, because that is when conversation happens. That was like what we used to do when someone was early. That's when you would chat. Leave time in your meeting agenda to do that, but it is trickier, and it is a matter of and it is why I suggest looking at your social circles, because work circles, you don't really sit in a cubicle. That's not true. Many people do, but a lot of people don't sit in a cubicle next to anyone as often as they did before. I can show that you the last slide again. Thank you, Lisa. Happy to. I have heard good things about Monday.com, and I like the fact that it has grants management in it, Rena, because a lot of them are sort of built for either or. That they have, like, you know, Asana or places like that have have management systems for your functions, but then separate out the fundraising. So I have heard good things about Monday.com. But this is a great conversation for us to bring to the nonprofit help desk LinkedIn network. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Check out what we have coming up next at the Nonprofit Help Desk. LinkedIn Network, just look up Nonprofit Help Desk on LinkedIn. You can find us there. And there's also a link from NPHD. Check out what we have coming up. Reach out if we can help you, try to pair you with a nonprofit expert. We want to do it. And thank you all. Have a wonderful afternoon.